Hey everyone, welcome back to bageltcg. I've been doing a lot of practice recently to prepare for the draft skirmish I have this weekend, so I thought I'd throw together a bit of a guide on how to do a Tales of Aria draft, specifically focusing on how to make the strongest type of deck for each hero. So in Tales of Aria, there's three heroes. They're all elemental, and we've got the Ranger Lexi, the Runeblade Briar, and the Guardian Oldhim. We're going to be going through each one here. We are going to first look at what are some good first picks. So the strongest equipment first pick, and is one of the most highly regarded first picks, is Deep Blue. Deep Blue basically is an insurance policy on an equipment. You can put a card from your hand on the bottom of your deck and then gain 3 resources. So it kind of turns any card in your hand into a blue. This is just good if you draw a hand of 4 reds. It still lets you function. It's kind of like the Hope Merchant's Hood in a way, but even better for this set. We've also got just some powerful generic elemental attacks here. So we've got the Earth action, Autumn's Touch, and the Lightning action, Heaven's Claw. The nice thing about these generic ones with no text outside of flavor text is they block for 3. But they still are very on rate. So this Autumn's Touch is a 3 for 7 damage, and Heaven's Claw is a 1 for 5 damage. These are kind of premier attacks that are at common. The reason I showed the Lightning and Earth ones is because, generally speaking, Lightning and Earth are the 2 most drafted and the 2 strongest elements in the set. This kind of funny looking graph is to show like how much each hero values the elements. So Briar and Lexi kind of value their elements equally, but you can see Oldhim kind of mostly just values Earth. The reason for that is that Earth allows him to use his defense reaction to block arcane damage. If you're playing into Briar and they attack you, you can use your defense reaction to pitch an Earth Blue, and then when they swing with Rosetta Thorn, if you think they're going to, it'll block the 2 arcane damage, which is a really powerful effect. It's one of the only ways to consistently block arcane damage in this set, and it's the main reason that Oldhim prioritizes Earth, is because it allows him to block arcane damage using his hero ability. Ice Oldhim just doesn't do the same. It'll just lose a lot more often to arcane damage from Briar, whereas Earth Oldhim is able to prevent that damage. Because of that, there's kind of like 3 points towards Earth in a way, because Oldhim is like double valuing Earth. Meanwhile, Briar values it with Lightning equally, and Lexi values Lightning with Ice equally. Ice also has kind of the lowest card quality overall in the set. Earth has powerful cards like Earthlore Surge and Burgeoning that are good. I'm just kind of showing commons here. Earthlore Surge is 2 for +5, which is a very powerful effect. Burgeoning can be a 2 for 7 from Arsenal. Lightning has powerful cards like Ball Lightning, which is a 0 for 3 with Go Again, or Lightning Surge, which is a 0 for 4 with Go Again if played from Arsenal. Meanwhile, Ice doesn't have as much power in the common slot or even the rare slot. It has powerful majestics like Channel Lake Frigid, which is definitely a first pick card. It's a very powerful card, but it doesn't have as much power in the lower rarities. We're going to move on to talking about each hero and how to draft. Like I said, kind of the point of this video. That was a bit of a quick introduction, but I really wanted to focus on how to draft the strongest deck if you're trying to like high roll your draft, which is how you're going to win these skirmishes. Drafting just an average deck and then playing well will get you there, but drafting the peak deck for your hero and then playing well will definitely kind of guarantee you those wins. So with Oldhim, Oldhim actually has some of the, if not the strongest majestics out of any of the heroes. He has cards like Terror Sunder that give you just very powerful effects. And then he also has some powerful rares. The main thing is that he has 2 defense reactions. None of the other heroes have defense reactions outside of the Sigil of Suffering for Runeblade, which is just 1 defense reaction, but Oldhim has both of these defense reactions. This is pretty powerful. Defense reactions are just strong in general, and his let him play against dominated attacks like Shiver attacks from Lexi, which he's usually weak against. These cards on the screen are all kind of first pickable in a pack. Turn Timber is a 2 for 6, which is very powerful. Biting Gale is a 2 for 4, but if you fuse it, it has a strong effect as well. The red defense reactions are the strongest ones. I don't really value yellow or blue Biting Gale as much. Turn Timber, blue and yellow are also still strong because 2 for 4 or 2 for 5 is still good. But Biting Gale, you almost exclusively want the reds. Like I said, Turn Timber, you're kind of okay with any of them. But yeah, his defense reactions are quite strong. So are his majestics. I'm just going to kind of run through his majestics real quick. So Winter's Wail, if you get a Winter's Wail, it is a very, very strong weapon. And it is pretty much, in my opinion, the only reason you would go Ice Oldhim. If you pick up a Winter's Wail, you want like 10 to 15 blue ice cards, and you're going to go pretty much full ice. That's the only reason you would really go Ice Oldhim. And it's a good reason. Winter's Wail is just a very powerful weapon. The Rampart is also a very strong card. You would always take it if you see it because, first of all, it's worth a lot of money, but also it's just a strong equipment. But it doesn't, force you into one or the other. It's just a good, it's better than Rotten Old Buckler. Endless Winter is a powerful specialization he has, but you don't need to be in ice for this card to be good. I play this in my Earth Oldhim as well. The fuse isn't that powerful compared to just hitting them, and at the very worst, it's a 4 for 8 that blocks for 3. So it's just powerful stat-wise. If it hits, even if it wasn't fused, they get a Frostbite whenever they activate an ability, which counts like weapon swings or equipment or hero ability activations on Lexi. So really, it's just a powerful attack. I wouldn't worry too much about being in ice if you get that. Same with Oakenold. Oakenold is just a 3 for 7 that blocks for 3. It's not like the most insane attack, but I wouldn't worry too much about forcing it to fuse. If you can fuse it, that's great, but I wouldn't try to, make your deck bad just so you can fuse Oakenold. Awakening it's an okay card, but the problem is it doesn't block. It also only costs 2, so you can't pitch it as a blue for your Titan's Fist to swing for 4. So Awakening's not an amazing card. It's solid, and it can search you a powerful attack, but I wouldn't value Awakening too much unless you got like an Endless Winter that it can search for. But if you don't have a powerful attack to search with your Awakening, I wouldn't value Awakening too highly. Next, we're going to talk about what makes his archetype so strong, right? So I've kind of dubbed, and I've seen other people dub, the powerful Oldhim archetype the 3 for 7. What you're going to want to focus on is picking up a lot of blue cards, a lot of cards that block for 3, and a lot of cards that are 3 cost 7 attack, right? So here's 2 examples. We've got Red Entangle and Red Snow Under. They cost 3, they swing for 7. What this allows you to do is you don't worry about fusing them. You don't really need to fuse these cards. What you're going to do is you're going to have 2 cards in your hand that you block with, right? 2, 3 blocks ideally. So you're blocking for 6. And then you're keeping a blue in one of these attacks to pitch the blue and swing for 7, right? And ideally, that is more pressure than the opponent is putting on you. So you're blocking 6 and then swinging for 7, and then blocking 6 and then swinging for 7. If they have a really powerful swing, these attacks are still 3 blocks, and you can still block your opponent out if they have a big swing and you don't feel like you can put the pressure back on. But 3 for 7 is a very good rate, and so you want to prioritize, these red 3 for 7s. There's also some good ones in Earth, which help because Earth is what we want to be in anyways. So we've got Red Autumn's Touch and Red Breakground here that are also 3 for 7s. And then we're just going to pick up literally any blue that blocks for 3, right? So there's really good ones to have, like Autumn's Touch, which is an Earth one. This lets you also pitch it to our defense reaction, but I put Emerging Avalanche here because it really doesn't matter that you're not even in ice, or you're probably never going to play this card. The fact that it blocks for 3 and is a blue is all you need, right? The 3 block means you can just block with it. It's a very efficient block. And the blue means you can pitch it to play any of our 3 for 7 attack here. So we're going to focus on getting attacks that are 3 for 7s and cards that are blues that block for 3, right? Those are our 2 primary things. I'm going to look at, the main equipment you like. So Oldhim really likes deep blue. Deep blue lets you fix any of your hands if you draw too many reds. Let's say you got a 4 red hand, but you have a 3 for 7 in there still. You can block like normal, and then activate deep blue to, get rid of the other red and play your 3 for 7 still. So deep blue is extra powerful in Oldhim, who has very expensive attacks. I also want to give a shout out to Cracker Jacks, which is a very fun equipment to have in combination with Thump. Thump needs to have greater power than its base power to gain its powerful dominate effect. So if you pick up a red Thump at some point, look to pick up a Cracker Jacks as well, which basically gives you on-demand Thump, right? So even if you only pick up one red Thump, when you eventually draw that red Thump, you can Cracker Jacks into it for a powerful 7 dominate with a discard on hit. So shout out to Cracker Jacks. It's not an insane equipment, but it does get some extra benefit in Oldhim, who has some Thumps. These are some first picks in Oldhim if I was opening a pack. And these are some common first picks. I like looking at the common first picks in case I don't have any like good rares or majestics. These 3 for 7 attacks that are also Earth really fit well into Oldhim, and the nice thing is they also fit okay in Briar. So that is one of the reasons Earth is a very safe pickup in draft and probably the strongest element overall. Next, let's go to Lexi. So Lexi's, the way she wins in draft, and like I said, the most optimal, most powerful deck for Lexi is called, I don't know what you want to call it, dominated pumps, right? So her goal is to pump her arrows up really high into big ranges, and then use Shiver dominate effect to deal a lot of dominated damage, right? It's kind of like a Bravo style deck where you're just doing big dominated attacks. Looking at her majestics real quick, Voltaire, her majestics are actually pretty weak overall, outside of this Pulse of Volthaven, which is quite powerful, giving 0 for +4, and being a double fuse for her hero ability. Or sorry, not double fuse, double reveal, right? So you flip it up with her hero ability, and they get a frostbite, and you get go again on your next attack. But overall, her majestics aren't too great. I wouldn't really pick up either of these majestics that highly. Shiver is a more powerful weapon than Voltaire, actually, when we're trying to do big dominated attacks. And Frostlock is just, not that big of a powerful arrow. We don't care about it too much. Same with these two. Light It Up isn't that great. It focuses on your opponent having a lot of equipment, and sometimes in draft and in limited, your opponents will barely have equipment. So Light It Up doesn't do too much. Ice Storm is quite good because the floor is still a 0 for +3 on your next arrow attack, which is pretty good to get. You don't really need to worry about double fusing it too much. It's just a 0 for +3, right? So Ice Storm you'll pick up still just for the 0 for +3 and not care too much to do it. The legendary is also a bit of a trap. It's fine because it can block for 2, but since you're going to be trying to use Shiver, you're not ever going to use both of your arsenals. So you don't really need 2 arsenal zones, and you might actually get a negative effect because you'll block with it. And it'll destroy your arsenal if you have anything there. So I wouldn't worry too much about New Horizon. I think Honing Hood is probably better anyways. You could pick it up to just block with it for 2, but don't worry about it too much. Her strongest majestic is probably, outside of Pulse of Oldhaven, is probably Seek and Destroy, just for the fact that it's another pump. It's a 0 for +3 with a pretty relevant on hit, making it so your opponent cannot arsenal on their next turn. And now we're going to look at what you want to focus on going Lexi, right? So Lexi is typically the least drafted hero because she needs the highest card quality, right? The other heroes, Briar and Oldhim, can have pretty powerful average decks. Meanwhile, Lexi needs to kind of high roll a little. She needs some really powerful pump effects to be able to close out games, right? So what your goal is with Lexi is if you're finding a lot of these powerful pump effects like Overflex here, which is a 1 for +4, you're going to start picking those red Overflexes up and those other red pumps, and you're going to play a bunch of pump effects, activate Shiver to put an arrow into Arsenal with Dominate, and then shoot a very large arrow out, right? You don't even need to worry about fusing it too much. I mean, if you can fuse it, that's great, and I would fuse that arrow. But if you can't, I wouldn't be too sad, because if you can shoot a 10, you're trying to, every turn, shoot an arrow for at least 10 dominate, right? That'll get you to close the game in, 3 or 4 turns, If they can only block 3 each time, ideally, they're going to bleed 7, 7, 7, and then just die, right? So you're trying to shoot like 10 dominate a turn. You can do that by doing like 2 pumps and then activate Shiver and shoot an arrow, right? So that's 4 cards you pitch to do pump, pump, arrow with Shiver. Other pumps that you want to look at, so we've got weave. Both of the weaves, the reds are very good. They're both +3s. All of your arrows, I think, almost all of them, except for like Bolt and Shot, are elemental attack actions. So these will give them +3. They can also, do good effects if you fuse, like giving it Go Again or Dominate on Weave Ice, which means you can choose +1 on Shiver instead. We've also got powerful red pumps in Ice Quake and Invigorate Red. Invigorate Red does require you to fuse the attack, but it is a 0 for +4, which is a very powerful pump. Ice Quake is a 1 for 3, and it gives a Frostbite if it hits, which is a good on hit. So those are kind of all the very powerful red pumps. There's these 5 plus Pulse of Oldhim, and your goal is just take any red arrow. You want a red arrow, so the red arrow should be a 1 for 5, and then you'll play Overflex, and you'll play any of these others, right? So +3, let's say you're doing a +4 and a +3, that's 7, plus the 5 from the arrow is 12, and then Dominate from Shiver, right? So that's 12 Dominate on an arrow. If you can do that twice, and they can only block for 3 each time, let's say, they're already taking 18 damage on those 2 arrows, right? So you really just want to get these powerful pump effects in and dominate with Shiver, and you will win a lot of games, right? But the thing is, you need a lot of these red pumps, and a lot of them are rare, like both of these weaves and Icequake. The only good common ones is red Invigorate and red Overflex, right? But if you can pick up like 3 or 4 red Overflex, if you see a bunch of them in your packs, and you can tell Lexi is pretty open, right? Meaning like there's not a lot of other Lexis near you, that's when you can say, okay, I'm going into Lexi, picking up these 3 or 4 red Overflexes, dominating my arrows. Make sure to choose, reload on Overflex is a may. Make sure you choose not to reload with it because you want to gain the dominate from Shiver. All right, we're going to look at the equipment. Honing Hood, very good equipment. It lets you pick up a card from your arsenal and then put a card from your hand face down. This means like if you arsenaled a card that you didn't really care about, like an arrow or something, you can pick it back up and then put a better thing down. So you can make sure you get your dominate from Shiver. Excuse me. This also lets you, it's an instant, which means like if you're going second, you're at the end of your opponent's turn, you can pop it and then put a card, face down, which is pretty strong. There's a lot of cool things you can do with Honing Hood. Mark of Lightning is very powerful. It'll double your on-hit effects. So if you have an Ice Quake or if you fuse the Blizzard Bolt or a Chilling Ice Vein, this Mark of Lightning will let you pop it, and then when it hits, they'll take a separate source of 1, which counts as separately, and will trigger the on-hit effect a second time, right? Mark of Lightning is pretty contested. It's probably one of, if not, the strongest equipment in the set. Maybe Deep Blue is stronger. But the thing is, Briar and Lexi both really want it. So I would value picking Mark of Lightning pretty highly, considering that both Lightning heroes want this equipment a lot. And then looking at her first picks, if I see a lot of powerful ice pumps, I would probably consider going Lexi. The thing is, Lexi's probably the only hero that really wants to go ice because, like I said, Oldhim generally wants to be on Earth. She kind of gets ice all to herself a lot of the time. Unless, obviously, if the Oldhim gets a Winter's Whale, they're going to be on ice. But assuming they don't open a Winter's Whale, they probably will be on Earth, which means ice is all yours. If you can get a bunch of powerful ice pumps early, like these Ice Quakes and Weave Ices, first pick, I would start thinking about going Lexi. Remember that you have until basically the end of pack 1 to decide on your hero. Your deck needs to be 30 cards, right? And if you combine pack 2 and 3, that's 30 total cards. So even if you don't use any of your cards from your first pack, you can still make a full 30 card deck with your second and third pack, but you cannot decide after that point, right? So like if you're halfway through pack 2, you have to have chosen your hero already. At that point, you're too many cards in. You can't make a full deck with switching at that point. you need to have decided by the end of the first pack, looking at your cards, figuring out what heroes seem to have more cards available that are powerful in the pack still. You need to have figured out by the end of pack 1 who you're going. Lastly, we're going to do Briar. Briar is pretty dominant and sealed, but in limited and draft, she is pretty balanced. All the heroes are fairly balanced out. She is really trying to abuse her arcane, right? So Rosetta Thorn swings for 2 physical and 2 arcane if you have played both a non-attack and attack action. This is really powerful because there is very few ways to block arcane in this set. Like I said, pretty much the only way I can think of is using runaways, the common boots, or gaining life off of rejuvenating, or using Oldhim's defense reaction, right? There's not a lot of ways to block arcane damage. So Briar's trying to get in this unblockable arcane damage for 2. Her equipment is okay. I would not pick Duskblade. It's worse than Rosetta Thorn because Rosetta Thorn, like I said, gets in that 2 unblockable. I would pretty much never play Duskblade. Spellbound Creepers are nice, and you can definitely use them to do fun things. I would pick these up because they can block and they can do powerful effects if you get them. So I would definitely pick these, but her common boots are also quite powerful. Sting of Sorcery is a strong majestic. I would pick it if you see it. It does that unblockable arcane I was talking about, which we value pretty highly. It also is a blue. It's also a non-attack action with Go Again, so it kind of does everything the deck wants. Blossoming Spellblade is not a first pick, right? Because it's hard to fuse it, and if you don't fuse it, it's not insane. But the thing is, it's still a 2 for 6, which is a fine rate, and it blocks for 3, right? So if you see it pick 5 or 6 or something, you're halfway through a pack and you see a Blossoming Spellblade, and you're in Briar, I would still pick it up and play it. 2 for 6 is still fine, and it blocks for 3, like I said. The rates are okay. The thing is, you're just not realistically going to be able to fuse it that often. In draft, a lot of the time, you're going mono element. Not always, but a lot of the time, and that just makes it pretty hard to fuse Blossoming Spellblade. I will say about the mono element thing. For Briar and Lexi, I usually am trying to go mono element, but with Oldhim, you're kind of just playing anything that blocks for 3. So you're going to try to be primarily Earth with Oldhim, but if you find a bunch of ice cards that are 3 blocks, or like ice fuses, like I said, you'll still play them because you're trying to just block a lot for 3. You're trying to fatigue your opponent out of their deck a lot of the time. And also, you're trying to play probably more than 30 cards, I should mention, in Oldhim. You can play like 35 or even 40 cards in Oldhim. You just want your opponent to run out of their deck. Okay, back to Briar. These Majestics are okay. Flicker Wisp is pretty nice if you're going Lightning to deal some arcane damage. If you fuse it, it'll deal 2 arcane just by itself. So I would pick up Flicker Wisp. Force of Nature is pretty decent also. It has a good fuse effect where it can threaten a drawing of a card. It's also just a blue that blocks for 3, and it's a non-attack with Go Again. These cards kind of do everything the deck wants. And I don't know if they're exactly first pick, but they're quite strong. Some other powerful Majestics, Pulse of Candlehold and Channel Mount Heroic, are both powerful non-attack actions with Go Again, which is what we really want to be doing, is a non-attack with Go Again, and then playing another non-attack with Go Again to get our embodiment of Lightning, and then swing an attack, and then swing with our sword, right? That'll give us at least 2 unblockable arcane every turn with a bunch of other pressure behind it, and we're probably not going to be blocking a ton. These are also quite powerful Majestics, like I said. Looking at the equipment, so some good equipment is, like I said, Mark of Lightning is pretty contested. Both Lightning heroes want it. The nice thing about it in Briar is that it causes the attack itself to deal an extra 1 separate source of damage, and that lets us make another embodiment of Earth because it counts as a separate source. So if you feel like you might need to block on your next turn, you can activate Mark of Lightning, and that'll make an extra embodiment of Earth to let your non-attacks block for 1 more. Sutcliffe's Suede Hides are a very powerful legs that you should definitely value highly if you think you're going to be in Runeblade. You can, as an attack reaction, pay a resource, destroy them, and you can give an attack action Go Again. You can only activate this if you've played a non-attack, right? So in scenarios where you don't have double non-attack and you cannot, make that embodiment of lightning, but you still have one non-attack, this is like that insurance policy of being able to still Rosetta after, even though you only have the one non-attack action. Powerful cards for Briar that you want to first pick are either of the weaves she can play also. The weaves in general are just really strong. For her, they're non-attacks with Go Again, which like I said is what we want to focus on. All of the ball lightnings are really strong in Briar, and you will play any of them that you can get. The thing is that these are attacks that have innate Go Again, and what that means is you only need one non-attack to then play ball lightning, and then you can swing your Rosetta, right? You don't need to find fancy ways to give your attack action Go Again. Ball lightning just has it, right? So that's some powerful engine right there to give your Rosetta Arcane. And that's all I have, right? So 25 minutes or so. I hope that kept your attention. I hope it helped you out a little. I'm just going to do a quick recap, right? So the strongest type of deck for each hero, they're all pretty equal. With Oldhim, we're doing a fatigue strategy, playing more than 30 cards, playing a lot of things that block for 3, and then playing a lot of earth cards that will let us use our defense reaction to block the 2 from Rosetta, as well as playing a lot of 3 resource cost, 7 damage attacks, right? So those are the main 4 things we're worrying about on Oldhim. For Briar, we're worrying about a lot of pumps. So we want to get a lot of pump effects to make our arrows swing for a lot of damage, and then we're going to use Shiver to dominate them. So we can guarantee a ton of damage in there. The only thing that can stop us is the few defense reactions in the set, and all the defense reactions are at rare, which allows us to really, benefit from there. And then with Briar, we're trying to maximize our arcane damage, since arcane damage is largely unblockable. So we're trying to find ways to swing Rosetta every turn and to pick cards that deal a lot of arcane damage. I hope that helped out. I hope it helps you better understand the limited format. Making this video helped me better understand the limited format. And I'm hoping to do well this Sunday at my local skirmish here in Jacksonville. Let me know in the comments how you do at your local skirmishes and where you're playing, where you're watching from, how you've been enjoying this set. I've been playing a lot of Oldhim because I like Bravo, so it's been a pretty easy transfer there. And yeah, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.